The pocket watch stopped ticking 3 winters ago. The same day, Cole Brennan buried its owner beneath the twisted pine behind his cabin. He kept it anyway, wound it every morning out of habit, listening to the silence, where time used to live. February cold had settled deep into the Montana territory, the kind that turned spit to ice before it hit the ground, and made even the strongest timber crack like gunshots in the night. Cole pulled the split logs up the slope on a crude sled, his left shoulder aching where shrapnel still lived under the skin. The war had ended, but pieces of it traveled with him everywhere. Steam rose from his breath in thick clouds as he crested the ridge toward home, a weathered cabin that squatted low against the mountainside, like something carved from the stone itself. The voice reached him before he saw them. "Please, we just need somewhere warm." He dropped the sled rope hand, moving instinctively toward the colt at his hip. 20 yards below, half hidden by the snow-laden branches of a deadfall, stood a woman, clutching a small girl to her chest. The woman's dress hung in tatters calico fabric, frozen stiff against her legs. No boots. Her feet red as fresh meat had left bloody prints in the snow behind her. The child's lips had gone blue. Cole counted the footprints. 2 sets, woman and girl, no others. Still his eyes swept the tree line. In this country, strangers meant complications, and complications usually rode in groups. But the woman swayed on her feet, exhaustion carved into every line of her face. The girl hadn't moved in minutes. He stepped closer, boots crunching through the crust. "You hurt bad." The woman shook her head, but the motion nearly toppled her. "Just cold. We've been walking since yesterday." Cole noticed the bruises, then dark fingers of yellow and purple around her wrists, fresh enough to still show the distinct shape of a man's grip. Someone had held her hard, and often. The girl stirred against her mother's shoulder, making a sound like a kitten mewling. "Come on, then." He shrugged out of his coat, heavy wool lined with rabbit fur, and wrapped it around both of them. The woman's eyes widened slightly, as if kindness were something she'd forgotten existed. When he lifted the girl from her arms, the child felt light as bird bones, her small body shivering against his chest. The cabin sat in a natural hollow protected from the worst winds by a stand of pine and a rocky outcrop that caught snow before it could pile against the walls. Smoke drifted steady from the stone chimney. Cole pushed through the door and went straight to the hearth, kneeling to feed fresh pine into the flames until they roared. He set the girl on a folded blanket near the fire, then moved to the cupboard for bread and the pot of stew he'd kept simmering since morning. The woman stood just inside the door, his coat still wrapped around her shoulders, eyes taking in everything. The rifle mounted on the wall, the extra ammunition stacked neat on the shelf, the way every item had its place arranged by a man who lived alone and liked it that way. When he set food before them, thick slices of bread and steaming stew, the woman ate with careful bites, stopping every few moments to touch the girl's forehead, checking for fever. The child slept hard, the kind of sleep that came after the body had used everything it had. "Name's Cole," he said, settling into the chair across from them. "Sarah," her voice was hoarse from cold. "This is Emma." She didn't offer more, and he didn't ask. The bruises told enough of the story. Someone had hurt them, they'd run, and now they were here. The rest could wait. Cole dragged his spare cot from the back room and set it near the stove. "You'll sleep here tonight. Both of you. I'll take the chair." Sarah's eyes met his, then searching for something hidden beneath the offer. "Why are you helping us?" No reason not to. But that wasn't entirely true. As he banked the fire and settled into his chair for the night, Cole's hand found the silent pocket watch in his vest. The man who'd owned it had died helping strangers too, cut down by road agents while trying to protect a family much like this one. Maybe some debts followed a man until he found a way to pay them forward. Outside wind moved through the pines with a sound like whispered warnings. Inside, 3 people breathed in the firelight, and for the first time in years, the cabin held more than just the echoes of Cole's solitary existence. Dawn crept through the frost-covered windows like something afraid to make noise. Cole woke to the smell of coffee and the soft murmur of voices. Sarah sat at his table, fully dressed hair pulled back with a strip of torn fabric. Emma perched beside her, swinging her legs from the high chair, a bowl of porridge growing cold in front of her. "Didn't have to get up so early," Cole said, pulling on his boots. "Couldn't sleep much anyway." Sarah's hands wrapped around her coffee cup like she was trying to steal its warmth. Emma here was asking about the animals outside. Cole glanced toward the girl who watched him with large brown eyes that held too much caution for someone so young. "Got a few chickens in the coop. Cow in the barn. Nothing too exciting." "Can I see them?" Emma's voice came out small, barely above a whisper. "After breakfast," Cole said. "If your mama says it's all right." The morning routine unfolded with surprising ease. Sarah insisted on washing the dishes while Cole chopped kindling. Emma stood at the window, her breath fogging the glass as she watched a red squirrel dart between the trees. When she laughed at its antics, the sound filled spaces in the cabin that had been hollow for too long. Outside, the air bit sharp, but carried the promise of clearer weather. Cole led them to the small barn, where his milk cow, a patient brown Jersey named Bessie, stood chewing hay, with philosophical indifference. Emma reached through the slats to touch the cow's nose, giggling when the rough tongue licked her palm. "She's soft," Emma announced. "Softier than she looks." Cole agreed. He showed her how to scatter corn for the chickens, how to collect eggs without frightening the hens. Sarah watched from the doorway, something like peace settling over her features, as her daughter explored this new world without fear. Back inside, Sarah found needle and thread in Cole's repair kit and set about mending Emma's dress. Her stitches were small, and even the work of hands that had spent years making things last. Cole noticed the way she held the fabric, careful not to waste even scraps. "You're handy with that," he observed. "Had to be. My husband—" She stopped, fingers stilling on the cloth. Money was always tight. Learning to fix things instead of replacing them, it was necessary. Cole nodded, understanding more from what she didn't say than from what she did. He'd known plenty of men who used their fists to solve problems that required patience. Most of them died badly alone and unmourned. The afternoon brought visitors. Cole heard hoofbeats long before the riders appeared, and his hand found the rifle without conscious thought. 3 men emerged from the tree line, bundled against the cold, moving with the casual confidence of those who owned the territory they crossed. Sarah's face went white. "Oh, God. You know them." "The one in front. That's Deputy Marshal Hawkins. If he's here." She swallowed hard. "My husband must have told them I stole something when I left." Cole stepped onto the porch, rifle cradled in his arms, but not yet raised. The lead rider, a lean man with a silver badge pinned to his coat, raised his hand in greeting. "Morning. I'm Deputy Hawkins, looking for a woman traveling with a young girl. You seen anyone like that?" "Might have," Cole said evenly. "Depends on what you want with them." Hawkins smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Nothing too serious. Just need to ask some questions about missing property." "What kind of property?" "Family heirloom. Wedding ring with some sentimental value. Husband thinks she might have taken it when she left." Cole felt Sarah's presence behind him, heard Emma's small intake of breath. He kept his voice steady. "Ring's not worth much compared to a woman's life, is it?" "No, sir, it's not. But theft is theft, and we've got a sworn complaint." The silence stretched like a drawn bowstring. Cole's finger found the rifle's trigger guard, not quite threatening, but getting there. "Well, I haven't seen any stolen rings, and I'd remember if I had." Hawkins studied Cole's face, reading the set of his jaw, the way he held the weapon. After a long moment, he touched the brim of his hat. "If you do see anything suspicious, you know where to find us." The 3 men rode away without looking back, but Cole watched until they disappeared beyond the ridge. Only then did he turn to face Sarah, who stood in the doorway with Emma pressed against her side. "There was no ring," she said quietly. He can't let me go." Cole leaned the rifle against the wall. "Then we'll make sure he has to." That evening, as snow began to fall again, Sarah helped Cole prepare supper, while Emma played with corn husk dolls Sarah had fashioned from scraps. The domestic rhythm felt natural, as if they'd been doing this for months instead of days. "You don't have to keep us," Sarah said as she sliced potatoes. "If it brings you trouble." "Already decided," Cole replied. "You're staying." She looked at him, then really looked, searching his face for ulterior motives and finding none. Something shifted in her expression, a wall coming down by inches. "Why?" Cole thought about the pocket watch, about the man who'd died trying to do right. "Because some things matter more than staying safe." The attack came at dawn, 3 days after the deputy's visit. Cole woke to the sound of breaking glass and Sarah's sharp cry from across the room. A rock lay among the shards near the window, wrapped in paper that fluttered like a wounded bird. Cole rolled from his chair, rifle in hand, scanning the gray light outside for movement. Nothing stirred among the trees, but the message was clear enough without reading it. He unfolded the paper anyway. "Bring her back or we'll take her." Sarah stood frozen by the window, Emma clutched tight against her chest. Blood trickled from a small cut on her cheek, where flying glass had found her. Cole set down the rifle and moved to examine the wound, his touch gentle as he brushed away the crimson drops. "It's not deep," he said, "but we need to clean it." As he tended the cut, Sarah's hands shook against Emma's back. "He's not going to stop. You don't know Thomas like I do. He's got the deputy convinced I'm a thief, probably told half the county I'm unstable. They'll keep coming until..." "Until what?" Cole's voice stayed calm, steady. "Until they drag you back to a man who leaves those marks on your wrists." Emma whimpered, and Sarah's arms tightened around her. "I don't want you to get hurt because of us." Cole finished cleaning the cut and stepped back. "I've been hurt before. I'm still here." He moved to the window, studying the approach routes someone might use to reach the cabin unseen. The broken glass crunched under his boots as he worked out angles and sight lines. Military thinking learned in places where miscalculation meant death. "We need to be ready for them to come back," he said. "Tonight, probably. Men like that, they like to work in the dark." Sarah's face had gone pale again, but her voice stayed steady. "What do you need me to do?" The question surprised him. Most women in her position would have begged him to send them away to avoid the conflict entirely. But Sarah stood straighter now, jaw set with quiet determination. "You know how to shoot." "My father taught me, before I married." Cole nodded toward the rifle rack. "Take the Winchester. Loads from the top fires as fast as you can work the lever. Emma, you come with me." He led the girl to the root cellar beneath the cabin, a space dug deep into the earth and lined with stone. Shelves held preserved food and supplies, enough to last through a long siege if necessary. More importantly, the cellar had only one entrance, and Cole could defend it from above. "If there's trouble," he told Emma, crouching to meet her eyes, "you come down here and stay quiet until your mama or I come get you. Can you do that?" Emma nodded solemnly, understanding more than a child should have to. The day passed with tense preparation. Cole cleaned and loaded every weapon in the cabin, while Sarah practiced with the Winchester, working the action until muscle memory took over. Emma helped by staying out of the way, playing quietly with her dolls, and asking no questions about the loaded guns or the way the adults kept glancing toward the windows. As sunset painted the sky red behind the mountains, Cole positioned Sarah at the back window, where she could cover the cabin's blind spot. He took the front rifle ready, watching the tree line for movement that didn't belong. The attack began with fire. A burning arrow arced through the darkness, striking the cabin's roof with a shower of sparks. Then another and another, until flames licked at the wooden shingles overhead. Cole cursed under his breath. They meant to smoke them out, force them into the open where numbers would tell. "Sarah," he called over his shoulder, "get Emma to the cellar. Now." Footsteps pounded across the floor behind him as Sarah ran for the girl. Cole kept his eyes on the tree line, waiting for muzzle flashes that would give away positions. The roof crackled overhead, pieces of burning wood beginning to fall. The first shot came from his left, the bullet splintering wood beside the window frame. Cole returned fire, working the rifle's bolt with practiced speed. A cry of pain from the darkness, told him he'd found his mark. More shots followed, coming from at least 3 positions. Cole moved between windows, firing and ducking back, as return shots shattered glass and chewed splinters from the walls. The smell of smoke grew thicker, and he could hear flames spreading across the roof above. "Cole," Sarah's voice carried from the cellar entrance. "The roof's going to go—" He knew she was right. In minutes, the whole structure would be engulfed, and they'd have to run. Into the open, where armed men waited in the darkness. That's when the idea hit him. Cole grabbed a burning piece of wood from the floor and hurled it through the front window. Then another through the side window. Let them think the cabin was fully ablaze, that panic had taken hold. He fired 2 more shots deliberately high, then called out in apparent desperation. "We're coming out, don't shoot, we're coming out." He dropped below the window line and moved quickly to the cellar where Sarah and Emma waited in tense silence. "Stay down here," he whispered. "Whatever you hear, don't come up. Where are you going?" Cole's smile was grim in the flickering light. To end this, he slipped out through the cellar's hidden exit, a tunnel he'd dug years ago that emerged near the woodpile. The attackers had positioned themselves to watch the cabin's doors and windows, but they weren't expecting someone to appear behind them. Cole moved through the darkness like smoke rifles silent in his hands. The first man never knew what hit him, Cole's knife finding the space between his ribs before he could cry out. The second died as he turned toward the sound, Cole's rifle speaking once in the night. The third man, larger than the others, realized what was happening and spun to face this new threat. In the firelight from the burning cabin, Cole recognized Deputy Hawkins, his badge glinting against his coat. "Should have stayed away," Cole said. Hawkins raised his pistol, but Cole was faster. The rifle bucked against his shoulder, and the deputy fell backward into the snow, his weapon flying into the darkness. Cole stood in the sudden silence, watching the cabin burn. 3 years of solitary life gone in smoke and flame. But Sarah and Emma were safe, and that mattered more than logs and stone. He returned to the cellar to find them huddled together, Emma's face buried against her mother's shoulder. Sarah looked up as he descended, hope and fear warring in her eyes. "It's over," he said simply. Dawn revealed the scope of the destruction. The cabin had burned to its stone foundations, leaving only the chimney standing like a tombstone against the gray sky. Smoke still curled from the ruins, carrying with it the smell of everything Cole had built in this place. Sarah stood among the ashes, Emma's hand clasped tight in hers. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." Cole kicked at a charred beam that had once supported his roof. "Wood and stone can be replaced," but they all knew it was more than that. This had been his refuge, his escape from memories that followed him like hungry ghosts. Now those ghosts seemed closer whispered voices in the wind that told him nowhere was safe for long. Emma found the pocket watch in the rubble, its silver case blackened, but intact. She carried it to Cole with both hands, as if presenting a treasure beyond price. "It's broken," she said sadly. Cole took the watch, feeling its familiar weight. The crystal was cracked, the hands frozen at the moment the fire reached it. But when he turned it over, the inscription remained clear. "To my beloved son, may time always be your friend." "Maybe it's not broken," he said quietly. "Maybe it's just waiting for the right moment to start again." They salvaged what they could from the ruins. A few tools, some clothes that had been stored in the root cellar, the rifles and ammunition Cole had moved there during the siege. Everything else was gone, reduced to carbon and memory. The journey to town took most of the day, walking through snow that crunched beneath their feet like broken promises. Emma rode on Cole's shoulders when she grew tired, her small hands tangled in his hair. Sarah walked beside them, scanning the horizon for threats that didn't come. Millerville squatted beside the frozen river, like something that had grown from the mud and stones. Wood frame buildings lined a single street, their windows yellow with lamplight against the gathering dusk. Cole had avoided this place for years, preferring the solitude of his mountain cabin to the complicated society of other people. Now he had no choice. The sheriff's office occupied a corner building, its jail cells, visible through barred windows. Cole pushed through the door, Sarah and Emma following close behind. Sheriff Morrison looked up from his desk, recognition flickering in his weathered face. "Cole Brennan, heard you had some trouble up on the mountain." "Hawkins is dead," Cole said without preamble. "Him and 2 others. They burned my cabin, tried to kill us all." Morrison leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled beneath his chin. "That's a serious accusation. You got proof?" Cole set his rifle on the desk with deliberate care. "Bodies are still up there if you want to count them. And the woman." Morrison's eyes shifted to Sarah. "Hawkins said she was wanted for theft." "Hawkins was a liar and a fool," Cole replied. "Check his pockets. Bet you'll find more silver than a deputy's wages could afford." The silence stretched like a held breath. Morrison studied Sarah's face, taking in the fading bruises, the way she held herself ready to run or fight. His gaze moved to Emma, who pressed close against her mother's leg. "Theft charges are dropped," Morrison said finally. "Lack of evidence." Relief flooded Sarah's features, but Cole remained tense. In his experience, lawmen rarely made decisions this quickly unless they had reasons of their own. Hawkins was taking money. Morrison continued, as if reading Cole's thoughts. "We've suspected it for months. Now we know why he was so eager to chase after married women instead of real criminals." The sheriff stood moving to the window that overlooked the main street. "You're welcome to stay in town if you want. Got rooms at the hotel work available for those willing to earn it." Cole glanced at Sarah, seeing his own uncertainty reflected in her eyes. The mountain had been their sanctuary, but it was gone now. Starting over meant learning to trust in something more fragile than walls and weapons. "We'll think about it," he said. That night they took rooms at the Millerville Hotel, a 2-story building that had seen better days, but still offered clean beds and hot meals. Emma fell asleep, quickly exhausted by the day's travel. Sarah sat by the window, staring out at the quiet street below. "What happens now?" she asked. Cole joined her at the window, watching late-night travelers move between pools of lamplight. "We build something new. Together, if you want." Sarah turned to study his profile in the dim light. "You'd do that start over because of us. I'd do it because of you," he said simply. She reached for his hand, her fingers intertwining with his. "I never thought I'd feel safe again. Not with any man. You don't have to feel anything you don't want to feel." But even as he said it, Cole knew something had changed between them during the long night of fire and gunshots. They'd stood together against the darkness and emerged scarred, but whole. That kind of shared survival created bonds deeper than words could express. Outside, snow began to fall again, covering the town in a blanket of white that made everything look clean and new. Tomorrow would bring decisions about the future, about whether they could build something lasting from the ashes of what they'd lost. Tonight it was enough to sit together in the lamplight, Emma sleeping peacefully nearby 3 people who had found each other in the wilderness and chosen to stay. Spring came early to the Montana Territory that year, melting the snow in rushing torrents that filled the creeks and turned the streets of Millerville into rivers of mud. Cole stood at the edge of town, surveying the plot of land Sheriff Morrison had helped him purchase with what little money remained from his Army pension. The land wasn't much to look at yet. 20 acres of rolling meadow bordered by cottonwood trees with a small stream running through the southern edge. But it faced east toward the mountains, and in the early morning light, Cole could see possibilities taking shape. "Here." Sarah's voice carried a note of uncertainty as she approached Emma, skipping beside her through the new grass. "Here," Cole confirmed. "Good water, decent soil close enough to town for supplies, but far enough for privacy." They'd spent the winter months in Millerville Cole, working as a part-time deputy, while Sarah took in washing and mending for the local families. Emma had thrived in the company of other children, her laughter becoming a common sound in the hotel's corridors. But Cole knew they all missed the quieter rhythms of life away from the crowd. Emma ran ahead to the stream, her delighted squeals carrying back as she discovered minnows darting between the stones. Sarah watched her daughter play, and Cole watched Sarah, noting how the tension had finally left her shoulders. how she moved, without constantly checking over her shoulder for threats that no longer existed. "It's beautiful," Sarah said, and he could hear the truth in her voice. Cole had already begun planning the house in his mind. Not as large as some, but solid, built to last through the harsh winters and fierce summers that defined this country. A place where Emma could grow up safe, where Sarah could tend a garden without fear, where they could build the kind of life that war and violence had stolen from all of them. "I was thinking," Sarah said, her voice carefully casual, "about what you said that night at the hotel, about building something together." Cole's hand stilled on the surveyor's stakes he'd been positioning. "What about it? I'd like that. Building something. With you." The words hung in the air between them, weighted with possibility and hope. Cole turned to face her, fully seeing the woman who had emerged from the frightened, beaten creature he'd found in the snow. Strong now, sure of herself, ready to risk her heart on something new. "You certain?" he asked. "It's not an easy life out here. Hard work, long winters, no guarantees about anything." Sarah's smile was answer enough. "I've lived through hard already. This would be different. This would be chosen." Cole reached into his vest pocket and pulled out the old pocket watch, its crystal still cracked, but its hands finally moving again. He'd found a jeweler in town willing to repair the mechanism, though the broken face remained as a reminder of where they'd been. "Time to start again," he said, holding out the watch. Sarah took it carefully, turning it over to read the inscription. "To my beloved son, may time always be your friend." She looked up at Cole. "This was your father's, my captain's. He gave it to me before—" Cole paused, old memories threatening to surface. "Before he died. Said time was the only thing a man could really own, and he wanted me to use it well." Sarah closed her fingers around the watch, then reached for Cole's hand. "Then let's not waste any more of it." The house went up through the summer months, built with help from townspeople who had come to respect Cole's quiet competence and Sarah's gentle strength. Emma appointed herself supervisor of the project, offering suggestions about window placement and critiquing the men's sawing technique with the confidence of a 6-year-old who had never learned to doubt her own opinions. By autumn, they had 4 rooms, a stone fireplace, and windows that faced both the mountains and the stream. Sarah planted a kitchen garden that yielded more vegetables than they could eat, selling the surplus in town for supplies and small luxuries that made the house feel like home. The wedding was a simple affair held in the parlor of their new house, with Sheriff Morrison officiating and Emma serving as the world's most serious maid of honor. Sarah wore a dress of blue calico, new bought from the general store, while Cole had splurged on a proper suit that made him look like a banker instead of a man who had spent years living alone in the wilderness. When Morrison pronounced them husband and wife, Cole kissed Sarah with the reverence of a man who understood the true value of second chances. Emma applauded wildly, then demanded her turn for hugs from both her new parents. That night, after Emma had fallen asleep in her own room, a luxury none of them had imagined during those first desperate days in the cabin, Sarah and Cole sat on their front porch, watching stars emerge in the clear mountain sky. "Do you ever think about them?" Sarah asked. "The men who died in the fire, Cole considered the question, weighing truth against comfort. "Sometimes, but not with regret. They made their choice, and we made ours." Sarah leaned against his shoulder, solid and warm in the cool evening air. "I used to think I was cursed, that everything I touched would turn bad eventually. And now I think maybe I was just waiting for the right place to land." Cole's arm tightened around her, and he felt the pocket watch tick steady against his chest. Time moving forward, carrying them into an uncertain but hopeful future. In the distance, a wolf howled at the moon, but its cry no longer sounded lonely to him. It sounded like music. Years later, when Emma had grown tall and strong and brought home a young man she intended to marry, she would ask Cole about those early days, about how he had known her mother was worth fighting for, worth changing his entire life to protect. Cole would think about it for a long moment, then pull out the old pocket watch with its cracked crystal face. Sometimes, he would tell her, time breaks before it heals. Your mother and I, we were both broken when we found each other. But broken things can be mended if you're willing to do the work. And Emma Wise, beyond her years, would nod and understand that some stories begin with endings, and the best kinds of love grow from the ashes of what came before. The watch would tick on, keeping perfect time, despite its scars, marking moments that mattered in a life built on hope instead of fear.